Hello, folks. I'm Stidmama. I have another name, but we're going to stick with Stidmama for today. And this is the first video on my new YouTube channel, Stidmama Sews. As we go along, you'll find more things about me, I'm sure, because I tend to talk. But I'm starting this because I've been inspired by some amazing YouTubers recently. And I just thought maybe my story would help someone the way that their stories have helped me. And a couple of things. One is I'm clearly middle-aged. I'm a part-time wheelchair user, at least at this point in my life. And you can see it here. I don't actually need it today, but I'm working on an idea that I think would be a lot of fun, and that'll be part of an upcoming series, I'm sure. A couple things about me. I really got into soccer 3 years ago maybe, when the United States women's team won the World Cup. It was a fabulously exciting, wonderful time to be watching women's soccer, and I so appreciated the hard work and dedication of those athletes. So I actually bought a couple of official balls because I also teach. And one of the things you learn as a teacher is when you can slip in little tidbits about things you enjoy, especially if you know some of your students are going to enjoy the same things, it really helps them relax and be ready to learn. So you'll occasionally see trinkets like this in the background. Now, the room I'm in right now, which we kind of are calling the library, used to be one of our children's rooms, but our children are full-fledged adults out and on their own, making their own way through the world, which gave us a couple of extra rooms that we could use. Came in very handy, actually, because when COVID hit, we had some choices about how we were going to proceed. Now, I've got some health conditions. One of my doctors advised me not to teach in person if I could avoid it. So for the 2020-2021 school year, I have been teaching from home, from this room, which I painted at the end of the summer when I found out I would get this position. Put the ball down. So this is about sewing, and if you read the little blurb, it says that I used to sew a lot when I was younger, and I did. I grew up sewing. My mother taught me how to sew. I was probably sewing bits and pieces by the time I was 5. Not sure when exactly she let me use the sewing machine. I might have been 7 or 8. Certainly by 8 I was using the sewing machine for simple projects. And I sewed by hand, learned some embroidery. I know how to knit. I know how to crochet. I'm not bad at those crafts, but I'm also not, I'm not a patient person, which is an odd thing for a teacher to say, but I'm not. I find a lot of handwork to be tedious, and my mind wanders, and it's really hard for me to finish a project if I'm doing it by hand. So although I'll be doing some historical type, historical inspired projects, I will probably use a sewing machine for most of them, simply because I need to see progress in order to stay engaged. Very much like students. See, what else do you want to know about me? We have 2 adult children. We have a dog. He's my shop dog, and he'll wander in and out, and occasionally he'll bark. And we've got bunnies and squirrels in the yard outside the windows. But he's one of the reasons I'm going to be picking up sewing. And it's kind of funny. He's a rescue dog. I think all of our dogs have been rescue dogs. And when he came to us, he was pretty neurotic. He had been in a whole bunch of different places, and he was only a year and a half old. So we gave him a blanket to sleep on, and he chewed right through it in about 10 different places. Well, after being at home for about 6 months with this pandemic swirling around us, I felt I should mend that blanket. It had holes in it, and he was still using it. We could wash it, but it wasn't very comfortable, I think, because he would get his paw caught in it. And so over the winter break in December, I sat down with my sewing machine, threaded it up for the first time in months, and simply patched and darned his blanket so that it was useful again. And just that simple act of mending was enough to get me energized and reinvigorated. So I started following other YouTubers. I started following, I had this idea that I wanted to replace some medieval garb that I had lost in a house fire. So I started, searching, and I ran across Morgan Donner's website. And because she made a lot of videos about how to make simple or ornate medieval garb. And following her, and then following some of her friends and people she mentioned, and then YouTube started suggesting, I'm now following, I think, 10 or 12 different cos-tubers, who I will mention as we go along. But I will actually link Morgan Donner's YouTube channel down below. Okay, next steps. So what am I doing? Well, I have a family member who had a serious health issue last year who survived. Kind of a medical miracle. We're not sure how, but this person survived, but sits down a lot more than formerly and doesn't have the strength and the stamina, as one often doesn't after serious health issues. So last school year, in December of 2019, my third graders and I made little quilt blocks, and I'll show you the one that I made. Very simple little quilt blocks. Very thin batting, muslin on the back, just bias tape binding. I used scraps for my own. But when we were doing these quilt blocks, I purchased some jelly rolls, which I'd never used in quilting before, but I was enjoying the quilting process before the pandemic hit, and was intending to do quilting last summer. Well, you'll find out. Things happen. Quilting didn't happen, but I still had those jelly rolls. Well, when I was mucking out what used to be our son's bedroom to paint it and get it ready to teach from, I found the jelly rolls. And one of them was red, white, and blue. And so, knowing that this relative of mine would appreciate a kind of a patriotic quilt, I thought, okay, let's do a quilt. And I looked at patterns for jelly rolls in so many places and quickly got overwhelmed until I found a pattern which had 2 vertical stripes and then a square and 2 horizontal as one block. And I said to myself, you know what? If I did 2 vertical stripes and 4 stripes on the side, that would make the same size, but it would be less regular to the eye, which meant that I wasn't going to have to be as worried about things matching up. And that was a good thing, because in the middle of teaching and all of the other things, it's hard to stay on top of things. But I started out, and I pieced one thing, and then I pieced another, and then I pieced another, and right now I have a quilt top, which is a pretty fun red, white, and blue crazy quilt. And I've got the batting. I decided I would, because this relative has some chemical sensitivities, as I do, I decided that I would lightly wash the batting. It's on a thin interfacing core so that it won't shrink or deform too much if it's washed. So that's where I am right now with my sewing projects. I have one project that it's a gift for an event in July or June. If I can get it done, it'll be in June. But I'm having so much fun with it. And I thought, you know what? There's another, I should mention another person. Darlene Michoud, I think that's how she says her name, is another sewer crafter type, deals with fiber arts, and I will link her stuff down below as well. And I actually started following her before Morgan Donner because she tells it like it is and has fun with her sewing and really gives her viewers the freedom to say, you know what, it's not perfect, it's good enough. And that attitude is hard for me personally. But as a teacher, I try to instill that in my own students. You do what you can, you do it in the time you have, you do it with the materials you have, and you move on. And she does various quilting and piecing projects as well. As I continue working on this quilt for my relative, I will take a few short clips and try to keep things moving. I cannot promise to publish on any particular time or time frame, especially right now. The school situation is really unknown. We don't know how things are going to go over the next however many years or months. So I'm going to post when I can. I think I can promise at least one a month, but when I can. And other projects I'm thinking of. So medieval garb, and like most people who sew, I have quite the fabric stash that I keep finding in little places where I've squirreled it away over the years since we rebuilt from the fire. So I'll be doing some medieval, or as an old friend of mine called it, medievaloid garb, hoping that at some point we'll be able to go out for some SCA type events. And then the other thing is, there is something called Costume College, and I didn't even know about it until this winter. So of course I completely missed it last year, which was virtual, and I could have gone to a virtual costume college. A lot of things I can't go to because of the chemical sensitivities and my mobility problems. But I started realizing one of the things we need is some costumers who have mobility impairments. I'm going to need to adapt anything that I make so that if I'm having to use a wheelchair, and they're all manual push because my arms are not broken, has to be something that's not going to drag on the ground if I'm sitting and moving along, not get caught up in the wheels, the front ones or the back ones or anything else. And voluminous skirts can do that. So I'll have to think about how I'm going to adjust garments to work with a wheelchair. And then I started thinking, there are people who are making like fan art costumes. I think they would go to things like Comic-Con and such. And there is a new series out on television called The Nevers, which I kind of like. And there's a character in The Nevers who right now looks like she might be a bad guy. And most people want to play like the good guys, but I thought, you know what? This bad guy in The Nevers uses a wheelchair. I could make a costume that represents a character the way many costumers do, and I can kit out this wheelchair, which I own. I can change it and make it look like or resemble the wheelchair this character uses in a show set in the 1890s, I think. How exciting! How much fun is this going to be? It sounds like a lot of work, but I have signed up with the Costumers Guild West so that I can go to Costume College. It will be virtual again. And I'm hoping that I can get something that will be similar enough to this character on The Nevers that, it might inspire a few other people. And that's where we are. As we go through our time together, the years, the months, however long it is, we may only have days, we never know. I'll show you my gardens. I'll show you other projects. This is not just for sewing, but it'll be mostly, I hope, for sewing and creative projects of various kinds. I think that's it. I encourage you to do the things that make you happy. Embrace serenity in your life whenever you can. And stay safe. I'll see you soon.